All right, now I am going to talk about parents and emerging adulthood. Not parents who are in emerging adulthood, but the parents to their offspring who are in emerging adulthood or entering or exiting emerging adulthood. So, parents. Well, I mean, you're an adult. You shouldn't need your parents, right? But if you talk to enough folks in emerging adulthood, you'll find that your parents, they still do very much play a role for many individuals. Of course, there are going to be exceptions. There are going to be people who had to sever ties with their parents for a variety of reasons, or their parents severed ties with them. But for most people, parents still continue to be an influence. And so more so now than in previous generations, parents continue to be a crucial influence after age 18. A lot of this has to do with changes, overall social and cultural changes in terms of how, society is set up and financial situations and whatnot. And so all members of a family have linked lives. You still have that influence. Even if you move away, even you move out, people in that family, they still play a role to you. They still have that special meaning to you. Now, so emerging adults, they are supposedly independent, or they're expected to be independent, or at least more independent. A lot of times we're like, well, when are you going to leave home? Leaving their childhood home and leaving their parents behind and making their own way, becoming an adult and doing their own thing. Well, not everybody does this, and not everybody does this on the same timeline. Fewer emerging adults have today, in modern times, have established their own families, secured high-paying jobs, and a lot of it has to do with economic changes in the job market and such, or achieved a definitive understanding of their identity and goals. All right, so here's some stuff that I brought up when I talked about identity development in adolescence. We now know that many people do not finish, or that many people after adolescence still have a lot of work ahead of them. They still continue to work on their identity, and identity achievement does involve continued exploration of whatever choices you have made and what other options you might have. So it's sort of false to think that identity is something you're done with when you're done with adolescence. And so many emerging adults, even though they know they're supposed to be independent, or they know that they're expected to be independent, many have difficulty actually getting there. And so they rely on their parents for various things, whether it's needing money, needing a place to stay, or just making that phone call. Hey, mommy, mama, cooking a roast. How do I do that? Something like that. Okay, just did my laundry and I think I did something wrong. Everything's pink. What am I supposed to do? Mom, dad, whoever you're calling. All right, those sorts of things happen. Or, hey, I got to sign up for health insurance and this is overwhelming. Can you please help me? I have to do taxes for the first time. This is a mess. Parents can help you with those sorts of things. Now, some parents can go overboard. They can be excessive, and they might participate in what we have labeled helicopter parenting. Now, if you've heard this term helicopter parenting before, this is an actual term used in research. Social scientists have labeled this. They've come up with measures for helicopter parenting, and helicopter parenting is overly involved. It is excessive. And you can have helicopter parenting, for younger folks, for kids, where they're just the idea with helicopter parenting, you're hovering like a helicopter and you don't give the child any autonomy or independence. Well, there are many parents of young adults who are still engaging in this helicopter parenting. And this has actually led to places like universities and places of employment having to state explicit rules. Like, I have come across situations where it's advising time and someone's parent will call me and they want to talk about their students' academic records. And I'll say, legally, I can't do that. They're like, what do you mean? I'm their parent. I'm like, well, no, your child is an adult and their records legally belong to them and I can't discuss it with anybody but them. They're like, what? But they're my child. I need to help them. And I'll say, no, they have to sign up for their own classes themselves. When parents will call to talk about grades, when they will try to, and there are times where it's acceptable for a parent to call. Like if you're in the hospital, it's perfectly acceptable for your parent to call a professor and say, I just want to let you know my child is in the hospital. They're going to miss a few classes. That's different. And especially you're not giving them any confidential information. You're just receiving the message, and you're, eventually the person, when they get better, hopefully they will be able to contact you themselves. But, there have been times where parents will call potential employers, for follow-up on job interview and stuff like that. And folks, do not do those things. Employers do not like that. It does not reflect well on the adult child. It makes it look like, even if you didn't ask them to do it, it makes it look like the applicant is not independent. It's not a good thing, not a good situation. All right, so there is this it's not like everybody is a helicopter parent, but definitely some folks are helicopter parents, and it's causing these new unique issues that, we never anticipated before. A lot of my fellow faculty members who've been doing this for a long time, they talk about how when they first started teaching and advising, they never dreamed that a parent would contact them, and now it happens from time to time. And my university actually had to create a system. Like if we are going to give any kind of information to the parent, or if the parent wants to sit in on academic advising sessions, the student has to explicitly give permission for that. And some students do, and sometimes it's because they are using their awareness, maybe their metacognition, maybe they know, like maybe they have ADHD and they know they might not get everything that comes up in a meeting. They might forget something, so they want backup, a parent to help with taking notes or something like that. Other times they might just be giving in to that overly involved parenting. All right, so that's helicopter parenting. It's not like everybody does that, but some people do, and it can cause problems. Now, another big issue with parents, a sort of a change that we're seeing recently, is changes in terms of how many people live with their parents as adults. And sometimes students, when I bring up this topic, like their heads will go down in shame. I'm like, why are you giving me that look? They're like, I'm living with my parents and I know I shouldn't be. Like, where did that shouldn't come from? Well, the social norm is that I'm supposed to move out and be on my own, yet I am living with my parents. And then I'll ask questions like, why? Why are you living with your parents? And they often give reasons that are very well known to their fellow students, like, I literally can't afford it. I tried finding an apartment, but they wanted me to give 3 times rent, and I don't have that. I needed somebody to co-sign, and just all sorts of hassles. I don't know where I'll be in a year because I'm getting ready to graduate, and all sorts of things come up. All right, so we see the happiness of emerging adults living with parents depends on different factors, like economy and culture. We see some differences, like in Italy. In Italy, almost all unmarried young adults remain in their childhood home. Also in Japan. In Japan, it is very common for individuals to live at home up until like 30, around 30. And it's not looked down upon. It's not seen as like you didn't do what you were supposed to, or that you weren't independent if you did that. Other cultures, they do tend to be the more individualistic cultures, but other cultures will have more of a social stigma. But statistically, we know that those numbers are going up for economic reasons. There are big factors like if all you can get is a minimum wage job, and minimum wage is really not high enough to be able to afford your own place. I mean, it just isn't. The statistics clearly show that in most regions. So it's like, well, what are your choices? You can have, like 5 roommates, or you can live at home with people won't trash the place and won't. You don't have to worry about people not contributing to their share of rent and things like that. All right. So fewer emerging adults live with parents in the United States if separate households are affordable. They aren't always. We generally have the preference to have our own place. In the United States, pay attention to the statistic, because I find that sometimes students don't write down the statistics when I give them to them. All right, in the U.S., 15% of adult children aged 25 to 35 were still living with their parents, right? So we're not even talking about 18 to 25 here, folks. We are talking about 25 to 35, 15%. It's not the majority, but that's a pretty big number. I mean, there are a lot of folks that for practical reasons or for personal reasons, that's what works for them, or that's what's possible for them in some situations. There are a variety of reasons to live at home beyond just, hey, I can't afford it. You might have health problems. You might have substance use problems. You may be in recovery where you know that you're going to do best if your parents are there to watch out for you. You might live in an area that doesn't have good infrastructure for transportation, public transportation, and the best place for you to live to be able to get to your workplace, it might be your parents' place. You know, I have known quite a few students where they said, well, you know, the apartment or rental house that I could find that I could afford, it was so far away that I would have increased costs for transportation. If I just stayed living with my parents, I got to keep more of my paycheck for me, for saving. And so there are various reasons that, you know, that people would live with parents, but it's not like it's something that does not happen, and it does seem to be on the rise in the United States.